The independent review needs to be bypassed. We then have to push for an independent investigation, but they bring in a new diversion. We need to push forward, but there is no disguising the fact that this independent review made us incredibly angry. It did, however, give us both a guide and the information we needed on how to proceed. In the subsequent follow-up meetings with MSPs Willie, Rennie and John Park, it was decided that for the meantime we should ignore the gross misrepresentation within this report and focus on what we had been publicly stating. So on the 30th of July 2012, more than 5 years after Colin's death, Willie and John issued a joint press release welcoming the findings from this report. They highlighted that questions remained over Fife police conduct during the investigation, and again a request for an independent police force to investigate Colin's death was made. So what is said in this review that we are so critical of, that could be of any help whatsoever? Our entire premise has been that Colin's case had never thoroughly been investigated, and within this document it stated that there were 5 investigative recommendations. What we were saying to the world was that regardless of what else is in this report, it supports the substance of our argument. Just before the release of the joint statement, we were aware of the sentencing of a Fife police officer for manipulating witness statements. We had attended this trial to understand how this could be done, and were even more convinced that Fife police should be nowhere near this. From attending the trial of this disgraced officer, we did get significant insight into how witness statements can be manipulated by an SIO. And this is something we will bring up again a bit later in Colin's case. A point of note that is important to be aware of to make sense of subsequent actions and communications. We had lodged formal complaints with Fife Police and highlighted failings of a single officer that in our mind was at least gross misconduct. On the 2nd of August 2012, we attended another meeting at the Crown Office. In this meeting we extensively criticised the independent review, citing many of the things already shared here. We openly attacked the actions of Fife Police and their undoubted bias. We were asked, where do we want to go from here? On the 6th of August 2012, we felt we had to formally demand that Fife Police had nothing more to do with this case, so we sent another email to the Crown Office. By the 14th of August, we felt compelled to write to the Crown Office again. We were getting even more frustrated. We were hearing that Fife Police were managing the remaining actions. We really felt we were being played. On the 15th of August 2012, we received a message from a friend of Colin's who had just been interviewed by Fife Police. They were making it clear that another friend of Colin's was a protected police informant, and they were watching what Colin's brother was posting on Facebook. As this friend could possibly give no value to the investigation, it was clear to us that we were being told that we were being watched. The inspector involved was the same one that we had placed significant complaints about to Fife Police, and they still let him lead this case and try and intimidate us. The idea that this officer openly told someone the name of a protected police informant beggars belief. What if we were criminals? This could have put this individual's life at risk. And yes, we did complain. And what do you think? Again, later. In light of what was going on, we felt the need to capture the fact that we are questioning why the Crown Office are not investigating Fife Police. We raised the point that we have shared enough information to warrant such an investigation, and in fact we include more in this message. On the 17th of August 2012, a letter was sent from the Crown Office which invited us to a meeting with the Solicitor General and the Crown Agent at Crown Office on 10th September. This was something that had been discussed previously, but now was actually happening. In a follow-up letter from the Crown Office on the 4th of September, we are informed that the purpose of the meeting is to discuss bringing in an external force to investigate Colin's death. We attended the Crown Office on the 10th of September, and there were a few in attendance including the Solicitor General, the Crown Agent and the MSPs Willie, Rennie and John Park, and Colin's family. A few days prior to the meeting, a slide set was sent to the Crown Office covering our issues. It was our intention to present at the meeting. Unfortunately, at the meeting we had some technical snags and we could not share. Fortunately, the Solicitor General had already reviewed them. After a brief introduction and some background given, the Solicitor General cut to the quick, informing us of the very thing we had been wanting. They were going to have Strathclyde Police investigate. We were obviously pleased that Strathclyde Police were going to investigate Colin's death, But we were also concerned about the past actions of Fife Police. We were informed by both the Solicitor General and Crown Agent that if Strathclyde Police found any sign of criminality, they would report this to the Fiscal. The Solicitor General went further and stated that a complaint from the family shouldn't be the trigger of a criminal complaint. This was encouraging, as it now covered both of our key concerns. So before looking at the Strathclyde investigation, it is worth quickly dealing with their view on investigating Fife Police. We can see from the email exchange with the Senior Investigating Officer from Strathclyde Police, they had never been asked to look at Fife Police handling of the investigation, nor was he likely to offer his thoughts. It looks like we were being given lip service once again to very serious concerns. At best, there was a passive belief that a police officer will inform on another serving officer. This beggars belief. At worst, this was being manipulated once again. The outcome was that the family did have to raise criminal allegations against police in 2014, and this will be explored further in the next vlog. After the announcement that Strathclyde were being instructed to investigate Colin's death, we were made aware of an article that was being planned to be printed in the Courier the next day. This was an out-and-out attack on Colin's mother, stating to be one of Candace's friends. First and foremost, we have never seen anyone from Candace's side say anything public against Colin's family, so this was unusual. This individual talked about elements of the FAI that no member of Candace's family or friends attended. It was in effect a police position on these issues. We comprehensively rebutted these comments, and this was not printed. As well as the general narrative of the article being totally in line with Fife Police actions, there were some specific points that highly suggest this was from someone inside the authorities. We had noticed that they had commented on actions recommended by the independent investigator as being a matter of course in a major inquiry and as per APCOS. APCOS is an abbreviation for the Association of Chief Police Officers in Scotland, hardly an everyday term. In the end, we went to Police Independent Review Commissioner and were told they could not do anything, as if true, this was a criminal act and beyond their remit. This is after reporting it to Fife Police and the Crown Office, who did absolutely zero. So now, after publicly being attacked at the FAI by Fife Police, we believe that they, or someone within, was attacking Colin's family in public. The Strathclyde investigation was led again by senior experienced officers, and it is best simply to start with the simple ending. This investigation completely and utterly annihilated the findings from the FAI. But as will be seen, nothing is straightforward. So let's begin by highlighting these contrasts. From the FAI, we saw that Candace's version of events was effectively unchallenged, and Candace was seen as a credible witness. Strathclyde in their findings challenged important aspects of Candace's testimony that in principle would challenge her credibility. With regards Colin's wound, the sheriff at the FAI had problems accepting the idea of self-infliction because of the location of the wound and the force required to do this. Strathclyde had brought in a new expert and delivered a report that stated the wound was to the side of the sternum and not through the sternum, thus being easier to inflict. As stated from the outset, this is Colin's story and we will focus on evidence pertaining to him. When we get to the final vlog, we will see just how far these people have been prepared to go to hide the truth about Colin's case from public view. But first we must need to cover some aspects of the investigation to provide some background. The Strathclyde investigation appeared to start in earnest right away, and a family liaison officer was appointed and was involved in taking family statements. By mid-October, we had our first briefing from the senior investigating officer and his supporting detective sergeant. We were told that the investigation team was about 14 and they were using a forensic anthropologist to determine exact location of the wound. In this initial briefing, we were informed that the forensic anthropologist had said that the wound was to the side of the sternum and not through it. As can be seen from the extract from an email we sent at this time, this view caused concern. Here again we have an argument that the wound was to the side of the sternum being presented by police, and again the expert opinion appears to be emanating from Dundee. An obvious question: who advised them to go to this expert? And why? This latter question is something we will see when the report is shared. By mid-November, we were given more feedback from Strathclyde Police. We were told that there was no evidence that Colin was suicidal and there was no evidence that Colin abused drugs. These were welcome but not unexpected comments, as it was in line with the actual statements that Fife Police had collected but had refused to accept. It was now confirmed that the forensic anthropologist states that the wound could not have went through the sternum. This would obviously change things, and it also raised our concerns. We were also informed that there was evidence that Colin had previously been assaulted and what was termed as just being slapped about. Strathclyde Police did later apologise for this terminology. In private discussions, we talked of our concerns, that suddenly we have a well-respected expert giving certainty to the idea that the wound was to the side of the sternum and not through it. This was the same stance that Fife Police, Dundee pathologist and fiscal depute had pushed for from day one. In doing so, they undermined the position of Professors Green and Busuttil, the former whom they tried their damnedest to have removed from having any say in this case, not to mention undermining the position of the pathologist who carried out the post-mortem. Obviously, this report would be scrutinised by the pathologist who carried out the post-mortem and those from the FAI. You would like to think so, wouldn't you? On the 14th of January 2013, Strathclyde Police came to our home to give us their final update. As part of the final meeting, it was reiterated that there was no evidence that Colin was suicidal, and the only thing that says he took his own life was the testimony of Candace. It was also stated that the drug taking was so inconsequential, it did not merit being mentioned in the final report. As stated previously, this is no more than expected, but why did this alone not prompt an investigation into Fife Police, who fraudulently tried to suggest the exact opposite? We were also given some other information that challenged the events that unfolded that evening. We had it confirmed that the report from the forensic anthropologist was complete and said that the injury was not sustained going through the bony part of the sternum. It seemed they wanted to emphasise this last point by informing us that they could tell us verbatim what was in that report. As part of our concern about a third party, we were told that they had no evidence of anyone else being there. The final position given by Strathclyde was that Colin's death was suspicious, but there was insufficient evidence to charge anyone. And this seems to suit the Crown Office, who say that this is the same outcome as the Fife investigation. So was the outcome the same? It would seem that if they had not brought in this new expert, the findings would have been very different. As expressed to us from Strathclyde, technically they got the same result. This does not mean that they have the same findings. On the 22nd of January 2013, we received a copy of this new report. Like most of the reports we had read, we went straight to the conclusion. It stated that the blade was most likely to have entered to the right of the sternum. Also that the blade most likely entered at a space between identified ribs, and it may have nicked the sternum, but there was no evidence that it cut through the bone. Furthermore, if all of this occurred, it would have passed through soft tissue rather than bone, and a lot less force would have been required. The burning question for us was that we had 7 pathologists at the FAI and none of this came up. We needed some kind of explanation. We contacted Professors Busuttil and Green and asked their opinion. The key point was that the only person they thought who could truly answer this was the pathologist that carried out the post-mortem, but they could not believe that they would agree with the first 3 findings of this report, as this would be in direct conflict with their own post-mortem. With regards to the 4th finding, this would be obvious if he agreed the first 3. As we knew we had a Crown Office meeting coming up, we thought it would be good to see what the initial pathologist actually said about this report. We wrote to the Crown Office on the 28th and 30th of January asking for this information. No acknowledgement or answer was given to this request. On the 20th of February 2013, we attended the Crown Office for the official review of the Strathclyde investigation. In attendance with us was the Crown Agent, the High Court Fiscal, Detective Superintendent from Strathclyde Police, and someone taking the minutes. At this meeting, the first thing we brought up was to request the view of the initial pathologist upon seeing this report. We were informed that they did not see the report, only answered questions sent by the police. They said that this pathologist made a concession on the site of wound and the force required, and went further to agree that it did not go through the centre but to the left of the sternum. The feedback we gave was that we could not understand this change in position. Given that it was not only a change from the pathologist's post-mortem report, but also of their evidence at the FAI, they were actually saying that this pathologist could not tell the difference between bone and soft tissue. Anyway, we were told that this pathologist's responses were part of their continued precognition and we could not view the actual questions or responses. Very convenient. Although much of the meeting involved us again bringing up Fife Police and the information that they corruptly misrepresented, the words of the Strathclyde SIO are probably the most telling in what this report is all about. The belief it could be proved that the wound went through the sternum, it could have provided an opportunity to prove homicide. But, As it did not, it would be much harder to prove this was a homicide. A fortunate outcome for a Crown Office that wants to say that the Fife and Strathclyde investigations had the same outcome. Well, as we develop this story, they had better live up to the first part about helping prove homicide. The final outcome of this investigation was that the case remains a suspicious death, and the fight goes on.